My family adopted Rex when I was 12. He was a 3-year-old German Shepherd mix from the local shelter. Gentle, intelligent, perfectly trained. The ideal family dog. Rex integrated into our home immediately. He followed commands perfectly, never chewed furniture, got along with everyone. My parents were amazed at how well behaved he was. But after about a month, Rex started doing things we'd never taught him. He'd sit in the living room, perfectly still, staring at empty spaces like someone was standing there. When we called his name, he wouldn't respond, just continued staring with intense focus. Then he began following commands we weren't giving. I'd be watching TV when Rex would suddenly stand up, walk to a specific spot in the room, and sit. No one had told him to move. No hand signals, no voice commands. But he'd position himself like he'd received clear instructions. My mum thought it was cute. He's so smart, he's training himself. But the behaviors became more complex. Rex would walk to the front door at exact times. 3:17 a.m., 6:23 p.m., 9:45 a.m., and stand there waiting, like someone had told him to guard it. He'd bring us specific objects without being asked. A shoe from upstairs, a book from the kitchen counter, items we hadn't even noticed were missing. Most disturbing was how he'd protect us from empty rooms. Rex would position himself between family members in certain doorways, growling softly at nothing, refusing to let us pass. My little sister, Emma, started having nightmares around this time. She said a dark man was telling her to do things in her dreams, clean her room in specific ways, arrange her toys in patterns, stay away from certain areas of the house, the same areas Rex was guarding us from. One night, I woke up to find Rex sitting beside my bed, staring at me intently, but his eyes were wrong, completely black, reflecting no light, like something else was looking out through them. "Rex," I whispered. He tilted his head in a way that was too precise, too controlled. Then he spoke, not barked, spoke. In a low human voice that didn't come from his throat, Rex said, "The master is pleased with your family's obedience." I bolted upright, but Rex had returned to normal. Brown eyes, confused expression, tail wagging like nothing had happened. The next morning, I told my parents what I'd experienced. They thought I'd been dreaming until Emma came downstairs crying. "The dark man visited again," she sobbed. "He said Rex is his helper now, and we have to do everything Rex tells us or bad things will happen." My parents were concerned, but not convinced until they witnessed it themselves. That evening, Rex walked to the center of our living room and sat down. He stared directly at my father, and in that same inhuman voice said, "Take the family to the basement. Now." My father's face went white. Did the dog just talk?" Rex repeated the command more firmly. And somehow, we found ourselves walking toward the basement stairs. Not because we wanted to, but because Rex's voice carried a compulsion we couldn't resist. In the basement, Rex positioned each family member in a specific spot, like we were pieces on a chessboard. Then he sat in the center and began speaking in multiple voices. A child's voice. I've been waiting so long for a family to play with. An old woman's voice. The dog makes such a perfect vessel. A man's voice. Soon, you'll all be as obedient as your pet. The voices explained that Rex had been possessed by multiple entities, spirits of people who died violently and were trapped between worlds. They'd been searching for a way to influence the living and had found that animals made perfect conduits. Dogs, especially, were ideal because humans trusted them completely. We'd follow our pets anywhere, obey their guidance, assume their behavior was natural. The entities had been using Rex to study our family, learning our routines, our weaknesses, our deepest fears. They were preparing to possess each of us, starting with Emma because children were most vulnerable. But they'd made a mistake by revealing themselves too early. My father managed to break free from whatever compulsion held us and rushed upstairs to call a priest. The entities, speaking through Rex, shrieked in multiple voices as he dialed. Father Morrison arrived within an hour. The moment he entered our house, Rex began convulsing violently, foam pouring from his mouth as different voices screamed through him. The exorcism lasted 3 hours. Rex's body contorted in ways that should have broken bones. His eyes rolled back, showing only white. The voices spoke in languages none of us recognized, cursing Father Morrison in words that made the house shake. Finally, with a sound like breaking glass, something left Rex's body. He collapsed, unconscious but breathing normally. When Rex woke up the next morning, he was different. Still gentle, still loving, but empty somehow. Like part of his personality had been stripped away with the possessing entities. Father Morrison explained that demonic possession of animals was more common than people realized. Spirits often used pets as practice before attempting to possess humans, and dogs were particularly susceptible because of their pack loyalty. The entities were using Rex's natural obedience to train your family to follow commands, he said. If I hadn't intervened, they would have gradually taken control of each of you through the dog's influence. Rex lived for 3 more years, but he was never quite the same. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at empty spaces with a look of profound sadness, like he was missing something important. I think part of him remained connected to those entities, and losing them left him incomplete. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear him whimpering and see his eyes flash black for just a moment, like the possession had left permanent scars, windows that other things could peer through. We never got another pet, because I learned that animals don't just see and hear things we can't. They can be controlled by them. And once something demonic has used your pet as a vessel, that connection never fully breaks. My grandmother left me her African grey parrot when she passed away. Misha was 23 years old, incredibly intelligent, and could speak over 200 words clearly. I'd never owned a bird before, but Grandma's will specifically requested that I care for Misha. She needs someone who will listen to her, the will said. The first few weeks were normal. Misha would repeat phrases Grandma had taught her. Hello, beautiful. Time for dinner. I love you, sweetie. Typical parrot behavior. But gradually, Misha started saying things my grandmother had never taught her. She'd whisper names I didn't recognize in the middle of the night. Tommy, Sarah, little Katie. Always in a child's voice that was distinctly different from her usual mimicry. When I researched the house's history, I discovered that my grandmother's property had been built on the site of a former orphanage that burned down in 1953. 17 children had died in the fire. Tommy, Sarah, and Katie were among the victims. Misha's vocabulary expanded rapidly. She began speaking in full sentences, having conversations with invisible entities, responding to questions no one had asked. Are you cold, Tommy? She'd say in my grandmother's voice, then switch to a small boy's voice. Yes, miss. The fire is coming. The conversations became longer and more detailed. Misha would perch by the window and describe things she couldn't possibly see. Children playing in a yard that no longer existed. Teachers calling names from 70 years ago. But the most disturbing development was when Misha started speaking directly to me in the children's voices. The lady with the bird was nice to us, she said one morning in little Katie's voice. But you're different. You don't see us like she did. I was beginning to understand that my grandmother hadn't just owned a talking bird. She'd been caring for a vessel that allowed trapped children's spirits to communicate with the living world. Grandma could see you, I asked Misha. The lady with the bird was nice to us, she said one morning in little Katie's voice. But you're different. You don't see us like she did. I was beginning to understand that my grandmother hadn't just owned a talking bird. She'd been caring for a vessel that allowed trapped children's spirits to communicate with the living world. Grandma could see you, I asked Misha. Misha's behavior became increasingly aggressive. She'd shriek if I tried to leave the house, bite if I didn't respond to the children's voices, refuse to eat unless I acknowledged their presence. The spirits were possessing her more completely, using her body as their only link to the physical world. One night, I woke to find Misha out of her cage, perched on my nightstand, staring at me with eyes that glowed in the dark. We're scared, she said in a chorus of children's voices. The bad man is coming back. What bad man? The one who started the fire. He's angry that we're still here. He wants to finish what he started. Misha explained, through the children's voices, that the orphanage fire hadn't been an accident. A disturbed former employee had set it deliberately, intending to kill the children he blamed for his dismissal. The arsonist had died in the fire too, but unlike the children, his spirit was malevolent. He'd been trying to complete his work by destroying the remaining children's spirits. My grandmother had protected them by providing a safe vessel, Misha, and regular communication that kept their spirits strong enough to resist him. But now the balance was broken. He's getting stronger, Sarah's voice whispered through Misha. He's learning to use the bird too, as if summoned by her words. Misha's voice changed completely. A deep, adult male voice filled with rage spoke through her small body. "Those little brats should have burned completely. I'll finish the job using their precious bird." Misha's eyes turned completely black. She spread her wings, but shadows poured from her feathers like smoke. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. The malevolent spirit was attempting to possess Misha completely, planning to use her to attack the children's spirits directly. I grabbed Misha, despite her claws tearing at my hands, and drove to the nearest church. Father Williams had experience with spiritual matters and agreed to help immediately. The attempted exorcism was unlike anything he'd encountered. Multiple spirits were fighting for control of one small bird's body. 17 innocent children trying to defend themselves against one powerful evil entity. Misha's body convulsed as different voices screamed through her. Children pleading for help, the arsonist roaring threats, all while the bird's physical form endured supernatural forces that should have killed her. Father Williams realized traditional exorcism wouldn't work. The children's spirits weren't the problem. They were victims being attacked by something stronger. Instead, he performed a blessing ritual designed to give the children's spirits enough strength to banish their attacker themselves. The moment he finished the blessing, 17 children's voices spoke in unison through Misha. "Go away! You can't hurt us anymore." The arsonist's spirit let out a shriek that shattered every window in the church, before disappearing completely. Misha collapsed, unconscious but alive. When she recovered, the children's voices were gone. Misha had returned to being a normal parrot, speaking only the phrases my grandmother had taught her years ago. But sometimes, when I'm having a difficult day, Misha will approach me and say, in my grandmother's voice, "The children are safe now, dear. They've moved on to where they belong." I like to think Grandma's spirit visits occasionally, using Misha to let me know that her 23 years of caring for trapped souls had finally allowed them to find peace. Misha is 30 now, healthy and happy. But I've learned to listen carefully to what she says, because animals can become bridges between worlds, sometimes by choice, sometimes by force. And once a spirit learns to use an animal as a vessel, that connection can be used by others. The children found peace, but other entities know that Misha has been a successful conduit. Sometimes I catch her staring at empty spaces with that familiar intensity, tilting her head like she's listening to voices I can't hear. I just hope that whatever tries to contact us next is as innocent as 17 children who only wanted someone to remember their names. Luna was supposed to be a therapy cat for my elderly mother. After Dad died, Mum fell into deep depression, and her doctor suggested a companion animal might help. Luna was perfect, calm, affectionate, content to sit with Mom for hours. A beautiful black cat with striking green eyes and an unusually gentle temperament. For the first month, Luna was exactly what Mum needed. She'd curl up on Mum's lap while she watched TV, purr softly during Mum's afternoon naps, provide the comfort and companionship that helped Mom start healing. But in late October, Luna's behavior began changing in subtle ways. She became obsessed with the smell of blood. If Mom had a small cut from cooking or gardening, Luna would follow her around for hours, trying to lick the wound. When I brought groceries with raw meat, Luna would become agitated, pawing at the packages, meowing desperately until the meat was put away. Most concerning was how Luna watched Mom sleep. I'd visit in the evenings and find Luna perched on Mom's nightstand, staring at her with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "She's just protective," Mom said. "She makes me feel safe." But Luna's protectiveness was becoming possessive. She'd hiss if visitors got too close to Mom, position herself between Mom and anyone else in the room, refuse to let Mom go anywhere alone. The real change came when Mom had a minor accident in the kitchen, cutting her finger while slicing vegetables. The wound bled more than usual due to her blood thinners. Luna's reaction was immediate and disturbing. She became frenzied, trying to get to Mom's finger, purring louder than I'd ever heard, her pupils dilated to complete blackness. When Mom pulled her hand away, Luna began yowling. Not normal cat sounds, but almost human cries of frustration and hunger. That night, I decided to stay over and monitor Luna's behavior. Around 3 a.m., I heard strange sounds from Mom's bedroom. I crept down the hall and peered through the cracked door. Luna was crouched on Mom's chest while she slept, carefully licking her neck. But Luna's tongue was wrong. Longer than normal, with a rough texture that was drawing tiny amounts of blood from Mom's skin. Mom was unconscious, breathing heavily. like she was under the influence of something that kept her deeply asleep, despite having a cat essentially feeding on her. I watched in horror as Luna's appearance shifted. Her fur seemed to absorb light, becoming darker than black. Her eyes glowed with an inner fire. Her body stretched and contorted as if something inside was trying to reshape her. Luna wasn't just licking Mum's neck. She was feeding on her blood, and with each drop, she was becoming less cat and more something else. I burst into the room, startling Luna. She leaped off Mum and hissed at me, but the sound that came out wasn't feline. It was a human voice, ancient and malevolent. She is mine now. Mum woke up, confused and disoriented. Small puncture marks covered her neck and arms, tiny wounds that looked like needle pricks. Luna was just cuddling with me, Mum said weakly. She helps me sleep so much better now. But Mom looked terrible, pale, exhausted, like something was draining her life force gradually. I insisted on taking Luna to a veterinarian immediately. Dr. Peterson had been treating animals for 30 years, but he'd never seen anything like Luna's condition. Her blood work is completely abnormal, he said. Iron levels are through the roof, as if she's been consuming large amounts of blood. But cats are obligate carnivores. They don't typically crave blood specifically. More disturbing were Luna's physical changes. Her canine teeth had grown longer and sharper. Her digestive system showed adaptations for processing liquid rather than solid food. Her brain activity suggested intelligence far beyond normal feline levels. It's like she's evolving into something designed to feed on blood, Dr. Peterson said. But evolution doesn't work this fast. Something else is causing these changes. I researched Luna's background and discovered she'd come from a shelter that had received her from a previous owner, who died under mysterious circumstances. The elderly man had been found in his home, severely anemic, covered in small puncture wounds. His death had been attributed to a rare blood disorder, but now I wondered if Luna had been feeding on him too. The shelter had no record of Luna's behavior problems, but I found online posts from the deceased owner's family describing how their father's cat had become obsessively affectionate in his final months. Luna wasn't just a possessed cat. She was a vampiric entity that had learned to inhabit feline bodies, using their natural affection and access to sleeping humans to feed gradually over time. Each host animal became more monstrous as the entity gained strength, eventually consuming enough blood to kill the owner before moving on to a new victim. Mom was Luna's latest target, and the feeding had been going on long enough that Luna was beginning her final transformation. I confronted Luna that night, demanding she leave Mom alone. Luna's response confirmed my worst fears. "The old woman's blood is sweet with grief," Luna said in that ancient voice. "Sorrow seasons the meal perfectly. I have fed well here. You're killing her. I'm comforting her in her final days. Is that not what humans want from their pets? Devotion until death?" Luna explained that she was a blood demon that had been inhabiting animals for centuries, drawn to households where humans were vulnerable, elderly, sick, or emotionally damaged people who craved companionship enough to ignore warning signs. "Your mother invited me in with her loneliness," Luna said. "She wanted something to love her unconditionally. I'm giving her that love, drop by precious drop." I realized that traditional methods wouldn't work against something this old and cunning. Instead, I decided to use Luna's predatory nature against her. I cut my own hand deeply and let the blood drip into a bowl. Luna's attention immediately shifted from Mom to me. Fresh blood from a younger, healthier host was irresistible. While she was distracted by feeding, I grabbed her and drove to Father Morrison, the same priest who'd helped my friend's family with their possessed dog. The exorcism was brutal. Luna's body twisted into impossible shapes as the blood demon fought to maintain control. She spoke in dozens of voices, all the previous victims whose blood she consumed over the centuries. But gradually, Father Morrison's prayers weakened the entity's hold. With a sound like tearing fabric, something dark and ancient left Luna's body. Luna survived, but she was changed. The veterinarian found that her physical adaptations had reversed. Teeth returned to normal size, digestive system back to typical feline configuration. However, Luna retained an unusual intelligence and occasionally displayed knowledge she shouldn't possess. Sometimes she'd stare at people's necks with an intensity that made them uncomfortable, or react to the scent of blood with obvious interest. The blood demon had left permanent changes, scars that would never fully heal. Mom recovered quickly once the feeding stopped, though she retained no memory of Luna's nocturnal visits. She thought Luna had simply been an unusually affectionate cat, And once an animal has been used as a vessel for something ancient and hungry, that connection can be re-established by other entities seeking easy access to human victims. Luna is just a cat now, but she's a cat that knows what human blood tastes like, and that knowledge changes everything about how we relate to each other.